Hi everybody, welcome again to another program of Yeshiva Classroom, and we're here at this time every week, God willing. And we were down here in sunny Florida for a couple of weeks, and I wanted to tell you about a few things, but one thing, I took sick with a head cold, and I went to a physician, and the physician, before I saw the physician, which I never did see, but I saw the physician assistant, and she was very helpful. Bottom line, that she diagnosed as a head cold because the mucus was clear, and as a result she prescribed Claritin and a nasal spray, Claritin nasal spray, whatever. But the point I want to bring out is that we spoke a little bit, and she told me that she was observant, and we got to speaking, and there was a terrible tragedy in Florida, southern Florida, Miami, just a few weeks earlier. By the way, this is being recorded on November the 15th, excuse me, it's January the 15th, 2019, on their calendar. But, you know, I wanted to show you something, and I don't have what that message was. I wanted to hold up. But basically, it's to do with Rabbi Millers, and I wanted to address a message to him, but first I wanted to, let me hold this up and maybe this will get some attention here. But bottom line is, Rabbi Millers from the Young Israel, I want to address a question to him, but firstly I wanted to speak a little bit about the physician assistant who was very upset in that where was God, why did God let this happen regarding the terrible tragedy of this young Yeshiva boy who fell from the 10th floor trying to get to his apartment on the 9th floor. He fell from the outside balcony. And I explained that one explanation might be in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 8. And over there it says the faller, you should put a parapet, you should put a railing around your roof so that to prevent, as a safety precaution, to prevent the faller from falling. And it shouldn't be in your responsibility because you had put a railing to as a safety guard. And you know, we might apply it to our own lives, in that we see that safety is very important. I mean, we can't have a person light candles, for instance, in front of drapes, and then leave the room, and before you know it, the drapes could catch on fire, and the house could burn down. So that's a safety warning in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 8, that we should have a safety net before we do anything. We can't leave a child in a room with an open window or a seat belt unbuckled when driving, car seat. Well, you say, you know, I never had an accident, and, you know, probably won't have, but that one time you don't put the buckle up, there could be an accident. And you could be harmed by not carrying out the directive and the Torah to have a safety net on anything you do. And as a matter of fact, this physician's assistant explained to me that the boy had done this previously, climbing down from the 10th floor to the 9th floor because he had forgotten his key. Okay, so a safety is a very important factor, and you know, God it can't help you if you don't follow the rules of safety. I mean, a person who commits suicide, he's being punished because he's taking his own life. And that's a very important concept. Life is very important. So suicide is allowed to take place. And the same thing, that we must learn from these past experiences, that the safety valve must be in place before we try anything. Now, you know, I wrote about Rabbi Millers, and basically I had spoken to him. I'm not a member of the Young Israel of Woodmere, but I often daven there in the Shacharis Minyan in the morning. They have several minyanim, several times daily in the morning, whether it's 6:37, 7:38, 8:39, 9:15. All kinds of smaller and larger groups of people meeting there to pray during the morning service. And I had suggested, you know, it's very difficult to speak to Rabbi Millers because in his busy schedule he has some little time to speak to anybody, but I suggested to him, you know, the people, many in the Young Israel, and in that matter, all Orthodox synagogues have a great percentage of people who are not learned, never went to a meaningful yeshiva, and never appreciated the importance of learning Torah and Talmud. And that's what I suggested, is that we should try to make people 20 seconds to review in each morning service, the fact that they should try at least to spend 20 minutes during the day on some kind of learning that they can do on their own. And depending what kind of level and what appreciation you might be, and I'm sure many of the congregants have time of an amount of 20 minutes during the day on their way to work, or kind of break you have. Do learn, whether it's a daf yomi and picking up a Talmud, or ideology, or whatever, but it's important to for the individual to do work on his own, because as it stands now, it's primarily the rabbi and the adult education teacher who does all the preparation, and he's the one that's speaking. Now it shouldn't be that way, because there has to be a conduit where the student must work and derive benefit from the work he puts into it. You know, it's a time consuming action, a time consuming study action, a time consuming study. It's very time consuming to look into a book, and especially you may not appreciate the fact that it has to deal with things that may not be applicable, so to speak. So, you know, if you don't realize the importance of the beauty of studying, I suggest that, first of all, speak to a rabbi and pick up some kind of an English, Hebrew, sefer, a book, so that you can you can actually do work, right? It's time-consuming study and meticulous preparation, of doing the act that is required of you as we learn out of all the commandments and directives that we have been given. Right? So, do the commandments and you shall be holy. That's what the sentence in the Jewish Bible says. Do the commandments and you shall be holy. That's in Numbers chapter 15, 40. Chapter 15, verse 40. Do the commandments and you shall be holy. What is holy? Means perfection in emulating God's thoughts, actions through the events that we learn in the Torah. Through the events that we learn in the Torah. And a person who is holy and does the commandments actually generates a physical change in that person. A holy person has a physical change by learning the commandments and doing the commandments. He is actually a physical, there's an actual physical change that takes place in him. I mean, it's more like for an example, a pail of water. You don't know if it's hot or cold until you touch it, or a live wire. You don't know if it's live by just looking at it. And that's how it is with a person who is holy, who does the commandments. There's actually physical change. And it's something that we are commanded to do as observant Jews, as followers and believers of the Torah of Judaism. Now, you know, this picture that I just had in my file was the picture of when the Warsaw Ghetto was finally liquidated, and these are the remnants of the Jewish fighters who were later executed, who were brought out in the final hours of the final liquidation before it was burnt, and their memory should be for a blessing. Their memory should be for a blessing. So that's one thing that we wanted to do, and you know, we speak. You know, we finished up the part of the importance of study and that ramifications that it has on our being. So it's something that we should always try to involve ourselves in, and hopefully we can involve the synagogues to do the work of energizing the people to learn, and not to just listen to the rabbi. I mean, the rabbi has you captured in Shabbos, because you have to finish the davening and you have to listen to the speech, sermon, as opposed to you, individual, doing the work during that time, doing the work that you have taken upon yourself. Look, I try to do the Daf Yomi, or the 1 page a day Talmud, and I do it in a very hurriedly way, because it's very detailed, and it's difficult to get all the points of view, but just a general idea of what's happening. And here, for instance, is the Art Scroll book, a portion that is being studied today in the Gemara Chulin, which goes into all the parts of the animal to determine if there's any error or puncture that would make the animal non-kosher, not acceptable to be eaten. And it's very liberal. The lungs are especially vulnerable, and it goes into scabs that form on the outside, and whether they were caused by some foreign substance. It talks about the blowing up the lungs to see if there are any punctures, the finding of foreign objects in the lungs or other organs of the animal, so forth and so on, to determine the kashrus of it. It shows pictures in color of the excuse me, of the trachea and the large windpipe, and how it enters the lungs, and all the possible problems that could occur. So here's a picture. Here's a picture of the trachea going into the lungs. There are three lobes on one side and 2 on the other. There's the cap over the esophagus and trachea on eating when it falls into place, and everything is explained. Now, I don't know if someone wants to go into all that detailed information, because practically speaking, it's it's really for butchers and so forth and so on. But it's good to know what is happening. Now, we're speaking on the Bible, and it happens to be that in this portion we are weekly, and especially on Shabbos, when the whole portion is read. It speaks about the plagues that Egypt was stricken with, and Moses goes to Pharaoh, the king, and he says to him that we must let the Jewish people go, that they should serve their God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their God, meaning the forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And serving means to not serve God physically, because no one can actually serve God. God has everything. But it means that it's like a father to a son performing the commandments and living according to the directives of the Torah. And that's how one serves God. That's how a Jew serves God. And you say, well, in Exodus chapter 9, verse 16, it says that it says, let my people go, that they should serve me, their God, and also invoke the name of God throughout the world. Invoke the name of God throughout the world. That's Exodus chapter 9, verse 16. Now, excuse me. This is what one should be doing by learning and acting as an example of God, God's teachings. We are invoking the name of our God throughout the world. All right? Exodus chapter 9, verse 16. That we might invoke the name of God throughout the world. So you should be taking notes on this. Now, it's not like, well, you know, he's giving a speech and then I'll watch for a few minutes and I'll go on to something else. No, that's not right. If I'm speaking and you want to listen as a Jew, you should take notes and check up on these sentences that I'm giving you. Because it's a two-way street. You know, what does it say? That you have to do the work. It's not like, you know, well, time to call out my God and I'll pray to him and then I'll hang up and come back and do what I want to enjoy. You have to work at whatever it might be, whether it's ideology, and I'm a very strong stickler for ideology, in that it's important that we know the basis for what we do regarding the commandments. It's not like, well, you know, it's good to do this, good to do that, right? But, you know, I gave you an example, Deuteronomy 22, verse 8, right? In Deuteronomy, over there, it talks about safety. You should make a parapet, a railing around your roof, where fall is destined to fall, and that teaches about safety devices. Now I gave you 9, verse 16. In Exodus, let my people go, that they may serve me, and they can invoke the name of God throughout the world. Now people say, well, you know, we all believe in one God. Other ideologies, Gentile ideologies, say, well, we all believe in God. And what they're saying is we all believe in the same God, we all believe in one God. But we can't ascribe to that, because Jews believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because God says over there in Exodus 10:15, in Exodus chapter 10, that's in Deuteronomy chapter 10:15. Chapter 10, Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 15. Behold, to God is the heavens and all that there is therein, and the earth and all that there is therein. But only in your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, do I love them to choose and their offspring chosen as a treasured people throughout the world. Chosen as a treasured people from all the nations of the world as of this day. As of this day. The day that I am saying it and the day that you're hearing it. He has chosen the Jewish people to be a surrogate, so to speak, excuse me, of the theories, teachings, and thoughts as expressed in the events of the Torah, as expressed in the events of the Bible. So we are carrying this out, and there are many organizations. Need I not mention Chabad, which is in over 72 countries. In every state of the Union, there's a Chabad welcoming house, willing and wanting to help you in your growth and practice of Judaism. And it's not like, you know, well, let's make it a little easier for you. Let's make another version of this Masorah, this tradition that we got handed down to us from Sinai, from when our forefathers stood in front of Mount Sinai and saw all of this happening, saw the Mount Sinai burning in fire and lightning and sound of the shofar throughout, and the ambiance was unreal, and to hear the first words uttered to those approximately 3 million Jewish souls underneath that mountain. I am the Lord your God. It's not speaking to Gentiles, it's speaking to the Jewish people. They stood there, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. In other words, God takes action in this world, coming and together with man performs different types of directives. For instance, let me say that a man has free will. Man has the ability to choose virtuously in all his interactions with people, places, and objects. People, places, and objects. He is able to conduct himself, to choose virtuously in all of these acts. He could think, he could contemplate these acts, hopefully virtuously, and that is man, unlike any other animal that has that ability. But that window of free will that man has only goes so far as thinking, as thought. The action behind that is dependent on whether God determines that thought that man has comes to fruition, whether it comes to fruition. So it's a combination. Free will is basically a combination between man and God to whether those acts come through. But, you know, we spoke briefly about our tradition and the fact that we have that tradition going back to Mount Sinai on the importance of living by the standards that were given to us at Sinai. Now, there's a wide range that will make you, that keeps you into the fold, so to speak. You know, from the Haredi to the modern young Israel type, where ball playing and these activities are more or less emphasized to a great degree. And I don't know how a Jewish day school, for instance, has the time to give over to those sports teams, whether it's basketball, hockey, junior varsity and varsity teams, and all the practice that goes into making a successful team, taking away from valuable time of studies, taking away valuable time of studies. Now, I don't think it's right. Well, we have to have some relaxation, but if you really get involved with Torah learning, you will not want to do anything but learn. That'll happen. But I mean, yeah, you need physical time, you need relaxation, something to do a little bit different, and of course it's understandable. But why not have self-defense courses or karate lessons in the school? Look, I'm asking you. I know a lot of people at the Young Israel of Woodmere in the 5 towns listen to this program. It's on Optimum Online on Saturday night at 9 p.m. And you know, it's one thing to listen, and another thing, if you agree, to take some action. Like, for instance, we should speak to the rabbi. Here I have Rabbi Millers. Let your voice be known that I suggest a 20-minute non-compulsory time for people during the workday to look into some kind of a sefer, whether it's reading the Bible portion, weekly portion every day, or reading on ideology, which with Rabbi Millers works, to whatever. But you can't waste time, and that's why it's so important to use your spare time during the day, because I know you come home very, very late, you have so much work to do, and there's never going to be you're just overtired, and when you get to synagogue and you pray the evening services, there's not much time left in the day that your head is clear to think. But during the day, try to make 20 minutes. And you can tell Rabbi Millers. I mean, I spoke with him and I suggested this 20-minute program that we should have all our congregants and friends and partake of. I mean, they have, right now, they have big placards outside, people saying that they will not talk during the prayer service, you know, and people have signed that placard. But you know, you take a look at an Orthodox synagogue, and how many people really love the learning to the extent that every spare time is devoted to picking up a Jewish book. And then if you don't have idea of what book you should take, look at the parsha for the week. But you know, my voice, who is not a member of the Young Israel Woodmere, to Rabbi Millers, it's just a drop in a bucket, because he has so many other activities that he's got to work on. But the importance of individual learning to review whatever they learned is paramount. And if you feel that way, or have a different plan, please approach him and tell him what your thoughts are. It says over there in Exodus chapter 32, verse 35, that after the golden calf was worshipped by the Erev Rav, primarily those that traveled with the Jews that were not Jewish, the people who went after that God, false God, graven image, were killed, were tried and executed. And there were approximately 3,000 people Jews that left under that, to fall into that scenario, and they were executed. But the last pasuk, chapter 35, says, well, then God let out a megaphah, a plague, amongst the Jewish people. Well, why should there be a plague if all the people who participated in this graven image worship were executed? The plague was for those people who were bystanders and knew what was right and kept quiet, did not participate in weaning those people away or doing any active types of teaching. And as a result, they were stricken with the plague. And that's how we are today. We can't sit by the sidelines and wait to see what will happen. I mean, it's not enough that the young Israels and the modern Orthodox synagogues have speakers continuously speaking, droning on catchy topics, which only a small percentage of the membership take or are involved in, and with very minimal type of audience participation. And the minimal audience participation is not effective in learning what the speaker has to say. The speaker has spent many minutes preparing his lecture, and that's what we should do. We should have some kind of a program open to all, for everyone to participate and on a meaningful basis, so that they will understand what was said, and not just go away with a minimal amount of understanding what happened. So that is so important, that Moses went before Pharaoh and he said, let my people go, that they may serve me, do the mitzvahs, and also that they can invoke the name of God. They should invoke the name of God throughout the world. So that is our charge. So, what had happened was that 10 plagues, beginning with their God, the Nile River was changed into blood, and they had nothing to drink. All the water turned into blood. The second plague was the fact that frogs came out, F-R-O-G-S, came out day and night and invaded the homes of the people, that they could not stand and could not sleep. And that is something that was unbearable, and Pharaoh said he would allow them to go, and God hardened Pharaoh's heart. He took away his free will for all the evil he had done to the Jewish people previously, and as a result he reneged on his promise, and he was again afflicted with more punishments. Okay? So one of the next punishments was keenum, lice, which means the infliction of lice throughout a man, woman, and child. And that was a louse. If you describe what a louse is, it's like an unreal creature in that little, almost microscopic insect has the ability to exude a chemical, a cement type chemical, like liquid cement, where Israel filled the murderous Hamas Arabs in their tunnels, right? The louse has a liquid cement that hardens, and he attaches himself to the hair follicle, and after that he has a proboscis, which is able to cut through the skin, and then he has another chemical, a anticoagulant, which enables him to suck out the blood of the host, that being the human. That is what one louse can do. Can you multiply that by all the lice at that time? And you can see how miserable the people were, because it created infections and bites and everything. This is a picture of the couple who were shot at a bus stop in the land of Israel, and their unborn child had to be delivered, and the child lived for only a few days and was killed. The murderous Arab was taken into custody. He was caught eventually, and he was put into prison and given a life term of prison instead of being executed for murder. And that's the problem. You have daily people throwing stones, committing acts of murder, actual acts of murdering couple. This is January the 15th, 2019, and there was a couple who was murdered in Israel in their apartment. The neighbor had heard some noise, and they didn't investigate further. They were just beside themselves. They were found dead, murdered, and what happens? They get the perpetrator and they put him in prison. In the meantime, the people are dead. They're murderers. What do they call them? Terrorists. Who knows what a terrorist is? They're murderers. And it's the government of Israel that has not kept their interest in the Jewish people by not having a sentence for murderers. Here is a recent when 3 Jewish teens were killed. They suffered. The perpetrators these were murdered. 3 Jewish teenagers on liberated territories, and the murderers are caught and put in prison, and they're being fed great, good times, good food, good conditions, and their families are given compensation by the Palestinian Authority. they're giving compensation, they're being paid while their relative is in prison for murder. Instead of executing these people, instead of catching these people and putting them on trial for stoning and all these other atrocities, no one speaks up. Like, well, what do you get away? It's like you're getting away with murder. And they're literally getting away with murder. So, excuse me. Here we have the land of Israel. Here we have the land of Israel. According to the boundaries, and you can look it up in Numbers, the book of Numbers 34:1. It gives you the actual boundaries, the God-given boundaries of the land of Israel. Now, here they gave this piece away, which was a God-given piece that belonged to the Yeshiva Yehuda, the tribe of Yehuda, right? They just said, listen, let's give them away, part of the Gaza. And what do? They shoot rockets into the neighboring Jewish settlements. And Israel doesn't attack. Well, we're waiting for the big attack. And whenever that comes, then we'll hit them hard. Oh, they'll feel the hand of the mighty IDF forces once we want to attack them. But that is getting away with murder again. Here, the Gaza Strip is being supplied by energy and money that Israel feeds through them, allows to be sent to them. And here, the poor souls of the survivors of the Holocaust went through such horrific experiences, and here in Israel, we can't even give an execution for a murderer. A murderer goes out free. A murderer goes out free, so to speak. And what happens is that after a while, they make a prisoner exchange because they captured some Jew, and therefore they'll exchange 10 Arab cockroaches for a Jew. And people forget. God gave us a mind to forget. Here are the people that died Kiddush Hashem, sanctification of God's name. These are the remnants of the Jewish people in the Warsaw ghetto who finally had to surrender to the murderous Germans, who to this day are the descendants of Amalek, those people that were sent to annihilate the Jewish people. So here we have a election coming up. Now, the poor President Trump, I mean, the man has done so many great, good things. I mean, he's lowered the unemployment rate. He has GNP has risen. Gas prices has fallen. All tremendous accomplishments. And the media doesn't even mention these things. None of his accomplishments, the Washington Post, New York Times, all of those papers, nothing is mentioned about them, only something that they can grab hold of and make a story out of nothing. Making something that is not even anywhere near important. I mean, like the President of the United States has been working for Russia for what reason? It's unbelievable. And then they used to try him on the mistresses that he had. Look, we're not electing a saint. We want to know what he's doing for the country, and to have the people come along to honor the flag and to be proud of being an American. You don't have that among the opposition. Only interested in the next election, who will be running, what Democrat will oppose. And in the meantime, character assassination of the present president, and continuously propaganda to make our president evil. And you know, if you get so much of it, you begin to believe it. I mean, here thousands of people coming across, new caravans all the time, wanting to break through the barrier. It's impossible that that a country can exist if there are no borders. If you want to come here, fine. But you have to do it legally. You have to wait your turn. You have to be processed. I mean, what they should do, maybe, you know, Canada is such a warm country. Let them go to Canada if that's what is needed. But to shut down the government and for a Democrat to not see things as the Republicans do, not one or two. You know, before the last election, there was a senator in West Virginia, a very popular senator, a Democrat, and he he preached to his constituents that vote for me because I back Trump. I back Trump, and even I voted for the Kavanaugh Supreme Court Justice. You see, I voted for Kavanaugh. You see, I'm like a Republican. But once he got elected, narrowly, he's not going over to the Republicans. He's not backing Trump, and that being the Supreme Court possible candidate that was knocked down, and they needed 1 or 2 votes. But this West Virginia senator, he didn't vote for that person. No, he didn't vote for that person. He's a Democrat. In the next 6 years, who's going to remember what he promised before the elections and what was it, 2018 or whatever it was, 2016, I don't know. Anyway, it's ridiculous. Instead of doing some work among the communities and seeing what is needed, they are talking about next election. Who are we going to run against? Trump. We have a Warren from Massachusetts, a quiet Mayor Bloomberg. He's going to spend $5 billion of his own money. You know, Biden. You know, that's all they're talking about. Who's going to run against him? Let's do some house cleaning now and see some of the bills that benefit America are processed and passed. Take a look at the papers and see what you see there. That's enough for that subject. But let's talk about, we're in politics. Let's speak about Israel politics. You know, Likud is supposed to be a shoo-in. It's supposed to be such a shoo-in as no contest. But, you know, if he gets in, automatically the country will, and I don't know if he's going to take a center-right position or a center-left cabinet. But if he gets in, he'll probably go center-left and therefore accept the peace plan of Trump. P-I-E-C-E, a piece of the land of Israel, right? That has been God-given to the Jewish people. Well, listen, this is this is a 21st century, it doesn't apply. I mean, how do you think the Jews got to Israel to begin with, when all the murderous nations were envious of that land of Israel, right? But who owns it? It's the Jewish people. The Jewish people. And they don't realize it came from God. And these are the boundaries, and these are the tribes that inhabit the land of Israel when it was first divided up and now it is made into one state. But you know, everything says, well, shoo-in for Netanyahu and Likud, and they're just no way anybody could beat him. But all of a sudden we see the national law is being challenged by that making the nation a Jewish state by the minority groups, such as the people in the north, the Arab, our good friend Arab people there that are pro-Israel and serve the nation. And you're going to have, as hard as it may believe, somehow you're going to find that God is in the background and He's sending forth His message. And I predict, this is only January the 15th, 2019, and I predict the new right under Bennett and Shachad, Ayelet Shachad, right, will emerge as the victors. And I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. And they're going to form the government. They'll beat out Likud by a couple points, and Likud is going to defect to them, to the new right, and also the minorities are going to defect to Labor, Gantz, and Lapid, right? And how is the new right going to win? They're going to, I suggested this in a letter to Bennett, that they should put the picture of Ayelet Shachad, the justice minister, and a caption underneath saying, "Please vote for me," under the New Right Party. And everybody knows her face. She's Ayelet Shachad. And they will vote for her. Because right now, there's about over 40% of the eligible voters don't even vote in Israel. But if we get those people, the non-voters, to do Justice Minister Ayelet Shachad a favor, it's liable to be something that the pundits are not going to believe. Okay. Now we're speaking of Torah. Torah is important. You have to vote. You have to spend at least 20 minutes during the day, if not more. I get the book Rejoice, O Youth. Behold the People. Buy it on Amazon. Behold the People by A. Miller. Rabbi Millers studied in the pre-war Slobodka Yeshiva in Slobodka, a suburb of Kiev. And his teachings were brought down through Western Europe, the Mediterranean lands, into Israel, from Israel and Sinai all the way to Slobodka, and he wrote them in English. And you can see every book of the Bible, he has a phrase and ideology on that particular sentence in the Bible. So it's a very important must. So what happened now, we're talking about the plagues, right? Plagues. This is my number over here. It's been changed and it was added, and I can print them out, but I don't have time for this session. But the New York number, home number, is not working, so what happens there? Another Makkah was Orov, a mixture of wild animals. And Rabbi Millers describes what happened over there. You know, the people were afflicted with wild animals. Well, what kind of business is that? How do you get wild animals to afflict people? What had happened was the imbalance of nature was brought into play. And that the lions and the tigers and the bears didn't have the natural food to sustain them. They didn't have the deer and the antelope and the small game. And as a result, they became wild. And they ran into the cities after humans. Right? That's a very interesting explanation. Now, what happened was when the Jewish people got into the land of Israel, they marched for 40 years and they encamped at 42 places. The longest place they encamped was 19 years. They're marked down, all the encampments. And 40 years they studied. They learned Torah. They got their sustenance from manna and water from the rock. And that's how they were able to learn Torah for all this amount of time and give it over to their offspring, of whom now exist today.